Well, this week we are taking some time to look back at the year. And when it comes to legal cases, so many things happened over the last 12 months. So joining us for the biggest and wildest stories is our 9 News legal analyst, Whitney Traylor. Whitney, good morning. You got quite your work cut out for you.
Yeah, that's why I had to bring my notes. Good morning, Joe.
Yeah, good morning. Well, of course, we mentioned a lot happened over this last year. Of all of these cases you have helped us understand, what stood out the most to you?
Well, I was thinking about this, and so I went more with themes, and there were 3 themes that I think stood out. And so one was abuse of power and greed, which inevitably leads to government regulation. And so we saw one recently with FTX and the crypto situation.
Right.
So there was a bunch of fraud. He's alleged to have taken company money and went and bought houses in the Bahamas and all these other things.
Yep.
Well, that's going to, I think, inevitably lead to, in the future, more crypto regulation. We also saw in Colorado HOAs kind of abusing their power, and there's not a lot of regulation on HOAs. So now we're seeing more regulation. So people say, government, get out of our lives, but it's people's bad behavior that creates the necessity for the government to get involved. So
Sure.
That was one. We saw people power, where unions were getting stronger, and we saw strikes that worked. We're seeing Starbucks starting to unionize, and there's case law supporting that. And then there were a lot of referendums on the ballot that were initiated by people. And so, you know, you have this kind of corporatocracy, but then you have situations where people are kind of standing up. And then the last thing is sort of the government sorting itself out, because we have 3 branches of government and they're supposed to be equal, but we had all of this with President Trump pushing back on all of that. And right now you're seeing that with the congressional subpoenas and things like that. Should the president be subject to Congress? So we saw cases like that. So that's it in, what, a minute?
Is that all? Is that all there is? Yeah. Did anything just really stand out to you or just surprise you?
The Dobbs decision surprised me for sure. And the reason that surprised me is because Chief Justice Roberts and the Supreme Court takes pride in precedent. Yes, we're talking about overturning
Roe v. Wade.
Yes,
right, yes, exactly.
Thank you. Overturning Roe, years and years, decades of precedent. And Chief Justice Roberts is interested in precedent. And the Supreme Court, of course, can overturn itself, and it does, but it doesn't like to. And so in a situation like this is going to create so much more litigation, because now it's referred to the states, and some of these states now have enacted or laws that were on the books that were never removed, laws from the 1800s. Right. Now they're trying to start to prosecute on those. So we're going to see a lot of litigation. That surprised me probably the most.
That Dobbs decision also had quite a big ripple effect in what we're going to see, you know, maybe coming up as well. Okay. Focusing in now on maybe not so much surprised you, but just cases that you thought, well, that's bizarre. We're talking about that?
Yeah, there were several, and I'll just lump them together. The funeral mortician type cases. So there were a number of cases where people were improperly handling bodies. They had them in their homes. They didn't have them stored. So we saw several of those cases. So again, you're going to start to see regulation on that. And then, of course, the Platteville, Fort Lupton police leaving the woman on the train tracks. To me, that was one of the most bizarre situations I've seen, and I'd even lump in Christian Glass with that. And I know we see a lot of police cases, but in that situation, the way that escalated and the harmlessness of that victim, Christian Glass, in my opinion, that was bizarre. I'd put that in bizarre, egregious.
Right, and those cases happen so close to each other. I feel like we had you almost on back-to-back with those cases. Let's leave people maybe with a little bit of a good feeling this hour. Did any case that you covered that you helped us break down leave you with some hope?
Some hope. No, it's hopeless.
No,
there is some hope. There were a couple things that gave me hope. It's easy to be in disfavor with the police, but there was one case in particular where the police were complete heroes, and that was the case in Golden when the pit bulls attacked a grandmother and the grandson, and we covered the case related to pit bull liability and the owners and such. But in that case, it was so gripping to read the police account of it. And these police were pure heroes, having to go in and get her out of there with
Yes.
these two pit bulls. So that case really, I wanted to hug an officer after that. And then, of course, the nomination and
Ketanji
confirmation
Brown.
of Judge Brown Jackson.
Yeah.
And that was beautiful. I mean, to look at where we've come as a country, and I know there's a lot of talk about race and it's become white noise in some instances, but here you have to look. I mean, it was 50, 60 years ago that they had the hoses on folks, on black people, preventing them from getting into school.
Right.
And so now you have, all these years later, there's only been a handful of women anyway, but now you have a black woman on the U.S. Supreme Court who's abundantly qualified, and it's that was hopeful.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's not all for of our legal analyst, Whitney Traylor. That was the look back. We still have the look ahead coming up in our next hour, so we're going to get to that right now. We want to get